Oh, you find yourself in my home. No matter, I find myself in abundance of boredom. Come, I offer wine and gossip. All I ask in return is for your undivided attention. Hello everyone, before this video starts, I'd like to say thank you. I didn't think nearly 5,000 of you would watch the video. It was quite a pleasant surprise. Again, thank you so much. I'm going to provide an overview to this video and the breakdown of what will be discussed and ultimately why I'm making this video. This video will be broken down into 4 sections: why I'm making this video, what abilities to run on life staff and their breakdown, what abilities to run on Warhammer and their breakdown, and lastly, the applications of life staff plus Warhammer and faction wars. For the why I'm making this video section, to preface this video, I play on the server Nidavellir as a marauder. Apes always stronger together, of course. I've been fighting in wars for the last couple days, and I heal for my group. I've come to realize so far, looking at the post-result screen, a single syndicate healer Zephyr is out healing every other healer on both sides of the aisle. So far I've noticed this twice. Over the last several days I've been brainstorming ideas as to why he's been out healing other healers, including me, and there are several reasons for this. Reason 1, he has a very high gear score. This gear is attuned with Constitution and Focus. If we go further into this, either his gear is close to 600 gear score, or another possibility could be custom-made gear with specific assigned perks to boost healing. Reason 2, he isn't being targeted by our dive team and is healing for free the entire match. Conversely to this, we have a dedicated dive team to reach out the backline during the war to take out any healers in ranged DPS, and I highly doubt he's been able to avoid them the entire match twice over. The life staff abilities that he's running must be meta. Further into this, for the life staff abilities, there are only 2 really good AoE healing abilities which now can't stack since the change that Amazon Game Studios did. So looking at these 3 reasons and breaking them down, the only option that we can use to increase our healing easily would be looking at our abilities and what might be meta to run for faction wars. For what abilities to run on life staff in their breakdown section, we're going to take an in-depth look at life staff abilities using nwdb.info/build. I'll post a link in the description down below. Currently there are 6 abilities with the life staff, with 2 single target heals and 4 AoE heals. For the first life staff ability, we'll be looking at Divine Embrace. Heal target for 150% weapon damage. This costs 25 mana and a 6-second cooldown. The traits that can be run with this is Privilege, reduces the mana cost by 5. The second trait is Shared Struggle. If target is below 50% health, heal 1 additional ally within 8 meters for the same amount. The third trait is Rebound. If second target is below 50% health, heal another ally within 8 meters of that ally for the same amount. For the second life staff ability, we'll be looking at Light's Embrace. Targeted heal for 100% weapon damage plus 30% more for each buff on that target. Costs 18 mana with a cooldown of 4 seconds. The first trait, Inspire. When you heal a target with Light's Embrace, target receives 25 stamina. Second trait, Connection. When you heal a target with Light's Embrace, gain 1% of your max mana for each buff on your target has. And the main trait, Magnify. When you heal with Light's Embrace, extend life staff buffs by 2 seconds. After going over the 2 single target heals for the life staff ability, let's go over the 4 AoE abilities. The first one, Sacred Ground. Create an aura on the ground that lasts for 15 seconds and heal 20% weapon damage for every second after. It costs 15 mana and a cooldown of 20 seconds. The first trait, Holy Ground, regenerates stamina and mana 100% faster while in Sacred Ground. The second trait, Blessed, while allies are in Sacred Ground, they are healed for 50% more from all healing. For the second life staff AoE ability, we'll be looking at Beacon. Shoot out a light projectile that deals 146% weapon damage to its enemies, attaches to its target and heals all nearby allies for 20% weapon damage and each second for 10 seconds. Costs 16 mana with a cooldown of 35 seconds. Beacon's first trait, Infused Light. Beacon's area of effect is now 50% larger. The second trait, Radiance's Blessing. Beacon lasts 5 seconds longer. And the third trait, Speed of Light. When Beacon heals a target, it also applies a 20% haste for 3 seconds, which increases movement speed. For the Life Staff's third AoE ability, we'll be looking at Splash of Light. You and all group members within 100 meters are healed for 50% weapon damage, cost 15 mana with a cooldown of 15 seconds. For the first trait, Shared Recovery, if you heal a target below 50% health, gain 3% of your max mana back. For the second trait, Purify, Splash of Light also removes 1 debuff. For Life Staff's fourth AoE ability, we'll be looking at Orb of Protection. Shoot out a light projectile that grants 10% Fortify for 20 seconds, heals an ally for 10% of weapon damage, and deals 146% weapon damage when it hits an enemy. Fortify reduces incoming damage, costs 16 mana with a cooldown of 10 seconds. The first trait, Protector's Blessing. If Orb of Protection hits an ally, they gain recovery for 10 seconds. Recovery heals for 7.5% weapon damage every second. The second trait, Shared Protection. If you successfully heal an ally with Orb of Protection, you also gain Fortify and Recovery. The third trait, Aegis. When the projectile hits, it affects all allies within the 3-meter radius. And for the main trait, we'll be selecting Divine Blessing. When you heal an ally, if their health is below 50%, heal for 30% more. So after going over the Life Staff abilities, let's pick what is best to run. Divine Embrace is a good single target heal with the capacity to jump heals to other targets, but the downside is it has a cast time, which means that you can get interrupted in wars, not even being able to heal in the first place. The low mana cost is nice. Light's Embrace is a fast single cast target heal with decent mana cost and a 4-second cooldown. I personally like using Light's Embrace as I've been able to heal and save friendly players in wars that are near death. Sacred Ground is a must-have AoE heal that lasts for 15 seconds and heals every second during that time. The mana cost is okay with a cooldown of 20 seconds. This essentially means that Sacred Ground only has a downtime of 5 seconds. Beacon is a really good AoE heal that can be placed on friendlies and enemies, so the AoE itself can move. The mana cost is okay, with a cooldown of being very long at 35 seconds. It can also apply a haste, which is nice for getting friendlies to move around whenever they're in a pinch. Orb of Protection is honestly lackluster in its ability to heal. A 10% Fortify for 20 seconds is nice, but it doesn't outperform other heals, and the recovery that it provides at 7.5% recovery per second isn't that great compared to other heals. Splash of Light is a nice large AoE heal at 100 meters with 50% of the Life Staff's weapon damage, with only a cooldown of 15 seconds and a cost of 15 mana. Lastly, looking at this list, the best Life Staff abilities to run for faction wars would be Splash of Light for its fast cast large AoE heal, allowing you to heal many friendlies during the battlefield. Sacred Ground would be the second for me for its instant cast and continuous AoE heal after it's placed. Beacon for the movable AoE heal that can also apply haste to targets as it heals it. So now, after going over the 6 abilities of the Life Staff and picking the top 3 that we'd run with faction wars, I'm going to be using nwdb.info/build to show you exactly how I'd be running my skill trades. For Absolve, this essentially means that your auto attacks require no mana, which is really nice. With Blissful Touch, light attacks heal 20% while passing through an enemy. With Revitalize, your light attacks give you a -5% cooldown reduction for your abilities, which is also really nice. With Desperate Speed, when you heal someone that's less than 50% HP, more cooldowns for your Life Staff abilities by 10%. This can be only triggered once every 5 seconds. With Sacred Protection, while holding a Life Staff, increase the amount of incoming healing to all friendlies in your group by 5%. That's a no-brainer for me. Divine Blessing would be the main trait that we'd be selecting under healing. Allows you to heal an ally if their health is below 50%, and they'll heal for 30% more. Of course, with the abilities, we'll go with Sacred Ground with its 2 traits, Holy Ground and Blessed. And with Splash of Light, with its first trait, Sacred Recovery. Now, moving on to Protector, we'll be using Bend Light. You're going to be dodging all the time in wars, so you might as well get that 20% more effective healing for 5 seconds. Light attacks and heavy attacks give you 15% fortify for 3 seconds. This is good for survivability. Of course, we'll be using Beacon, as we discussed before, with Infused Light, Radiance Blessing, and Speed of Light to give your allies 20% haste for 3 seconds. Personally, I went with Protector's Strength. When you have a buff, for example, dodging, you heal an extra 10%, and then Balance. So if you get focused by the enemy dive team, if you need to run away, that 10% haste for 5 seconds can get you out of a pinch. Now, ultimately, you could swap Balance or even Speed of Light to get Purify if you find it more important to debuff your teammates or provide them with a speed boost. For what abilities to use on Warhammer and their breakdown section. For the Warhammer, the choices are simple, as we're honestly looking for crowd control over damage. For the first Warhammer ability, underneath Juggernaut Tree, we'll be looking at Wrecking Ball. Strike the ground around the target with a hammer, dealing 120% weapon damage and flattening the enemy with a cooldown of 15 seconds. The first trait, Safety Measures. On a successful hit, player obtains Fortify, granting 20% damage resistance for 40 seconds. The second trait, Breathing Room. All targets within a 1.5 meter of the target hit are also flattened. For the second Warhammer ability, we're going to be looking at Shockwave underneath the Crowd Crusher tech tree. Shockwave. Slam the hammer into the ground, causing a 3 meter radius AoE earthquake that deals 80% weapon damage, applies a stun to all impacted targets for 2 seconds. Frailty, which is the first trait. The trauma of the attack causes weaken, decreasing the damage dealt from the target's attack by 10% for 10 seconds. The second trait, Meteoric Crater, expands the effective range of Shockwave to a 4 meter radius. For the third Warhammer ability, underneath Crowd Crusher, we're going to be looking at Path of Destiny, a powerful ground strike that erupts in a linear wave of energy in front of the player, dealing 110% weapon damage to all targets in its path with a cooldown of 22 seconds. Its first trait, Seismic Waves, Path of Destiny, now staggers all targets in its path. The second trait, Stimulated Reduction, ability cooldown reduction by 5% for each enemy hit with Path of Destiny. So going over the 3 abilities for the Warhammer, I'm going to be using nwdb.info/build to go over what traits I'll be selecting for this faction war. I'll be starting off with Juggernaut. Epitome of Bonk is the first trait, which just simply increases the armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer standard attacks. Second, Exhaustive Attacks. All Warhammer abilities apply exhaust, slowing target stamina regeneration by 15% for 5 seconds. I'll be moving on to Power Through Pain. For 1 second after taking damage, deal 35% extra damage. Our first ability will be Wrecking Ball, with its first trait, Safety Measures, giving you a Fortify by 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Its second trait, Breathing Room. All targets within 1.5 meters are also affected. Moving on to Crowd Crusher. Outnumbered, increases damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 3 meters of the player. This essentially means that if you are surrounded by people that are trying to dive you to kill you as the healer, you'll just be able to take more damage. Felicitated Expedition. After hitting a target with an active debuff, obtain haste, increasing movement speed by 15% for 3 seconds. Guarded Sprint. While you're moving from point A to point B, pull out your Warhammer and you'll take 10% less damage. Acceleration. Reduce Warhammer cooldowns by 7% when using light attacks against targets with an active debuff. It means you'll get your abilities cool down sooner. Concussive Impact. 15% damage against targets affected by a Warhammer debuff. Prevailing Spirit. Regain 35% of the damage dealt as health when using a Crowd Crusher ability. These 3 abilities that you see here, any one of these will give you 35% health regen. Now for the main trait, we'll be using Aftershock, which essentially any ability that you use that does crowd control effect they'll be given a 20% slow for 4 seconds. On to the first Crowd Crusher ability, Shockwave, with its first trait, Frailty, giving targets weaken, decreasing their damage dealt by 10% for 10 seconds. The second trait, Meteoric Crater, expands the effective range of Shockwave to a 4-meter radius. And then the second ability for Crowd Crusher, Path of Destiny, with Seismic Waves as its first trait, essentially staggering all enemies in its path. And the second trait, Stimulated Reduction, ability cooldown reduced by 5% for each enemy hit with Path of Destiny. For the applications of Lifestaff plus Warhammer in Faction Wars section, the application of both of these weapons is quite simple and can be broken down into 3 rotations. Make use of your AoE heals, make sure they're on cooldown, and provide as much healing to your team as possible. This can be done by making sure that they're bunched up and the AoE heals do as much healing as possible. Once this is on cooldown, you want to be switching to your Warhammer and applying crowd control to tanks, healers, and DPS. For example, when you're all on the point and you're trying to capture it, you could be using Shockwave plus Path of Destiny to be staggering the enemy that's trying to get you off the point. Once this is back on cooldown, switch back to your Lifestaff and provide healing for your team again. This process is essentially heal, crowd control, heal, and you want to repeat this process. Closing arguments. I want to take another chance and thank you all for the last video, as honestly I was blown away by the support. I originally made it for fun, not thinking anyone was going to watch it, and I was brainstorming out loud. I'm making this video and I want to come forth to the New World community with this idea to have other people a part of the community play test it and see if it actually works out, as I'm only one person and I want you guys to critique it and see how it is and see if this build actually does work. Once again, thank you so much.